Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Grace Lauren Taylor, and you are listening to episode 52 of the Trauma Dump Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at the Trauma Dump Podcast, we seek to answer the question, what is mental health? How do I take care of my own, and how do I support others? This week, we'll be discussing the topic of why familial relationships can feel obligatory, even when they're abusive, with our special guest of the week, Jace. You can go follow Jace on TikTok and Instagram. The handle is at Yeehaw Jace. That is YeehawJace. So please go support him for being on this podcast and sharing his story. And if you'd like to share your story on the podcast, we have a Discord. It's anonymous, it's free. You can connect with us over on our Discord, which the links are in the description, in the podcast participants channel, and share your unique experiences, and we will match you to the right episode. Or you can email the podcast. The podcast email is thetraumadump@gmail.com. So please feel free to contact us if you'd like to be on the show. And since we're discussing how familial relationships can be abusive, we're going to give a free resource immediately. That is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233, or you can text START to 88788. Please feel free to connect with them if you are in any turmoil. And we have so many more resources in our description for anything domestic violence or family abusive relationships. And just a quick disclaimer before we start, I am not a licensed health professional. This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of these topics that are so often overlooked and extremely misunderstood. If you or a loved one are in need of medical professional help, we have resources in our description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. Abusive family relationships can profoundly impact an individual's sense of self and overall well-being. Here's an in-depth look on how such relationships can affect a person. There are multiple types of abuse, but the four main types are physical abuse, emotional psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect. Neglect is a form of abuse that not many people recognize as abuse. Neglect occurs when a caregiver fails to provide necessary care, support, and protection. Sexual abuse encompasses any non-consensual sexual contact or behavior within a family, like if someone walks past you and smacks your butt or touches you in a place that you do not wish to be touched. That is sexual abuse. Emotional and psychological abuse involves verbal assaults, threats, intimidation, manipulation, and constant criticism that erode the self-esteem. And there's also physical abuse, which involves causing physical harm through hitting, punching, slapping, or other forms of violence. I really want to give the disclaimer that if you're feeling any type of triggered or fear or intimidation around watching or listening to this podcast, please pause it, okay? Take care of yourself. Get a drink of something, get a drink of water, eat a snack, and take care of yourself because you deserve it, okay? You deserve to feel seen, you deserve to feel loved. And if you're starting to notice, any patterns of abuse in your family dynamics, there are resources that are available in our description. So please check them out at your leisure. All right, let's get into this interview. Hello, Jace. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hi, thank you. I am good. Just got moved in from the outside where the construction was going.
I know you sent me that video. Those are giant, like PVC pipes, yeah?
So the house next door, I feel like they're like building a shelter. Like there's like a big steel I've seen like how they lay basements, but this is like significant. So I'm like, well, if there's an apocalypse, at least I can go next door. So.
Exactly. Honestly,
Win-win.
apocalypse. Yeah. Have you seen the Fallout show?
I haven't. The one where they released like the thing on TikTok that everybody was doing the.
Yeah, it was crazy. But it's based on the like games, the Fallout games.
Mhm.
And my fiance played all of those games. So he was eating that show up. He was like eating that shit up. He was like, this is like the best show ever.
It
And I was
scares me to
just,
watch some of those. I'm like, oh,
yeah, because it feels real.
it does feel real. I mean, we're in such like uncertain times that I feel like it's like, okay, that's funny, but is it really funny? Like, because I feel like that could happen tomorrow.
Yeah, a nuclear fallout could definitely happen tomorrow. Like
Yeah,
apparently Kim Jong-un and Putin met
Putin.
with each other like this past week, and they were
Hmm.
trading something that had to do with nuclear weapons or something that had to do with weapons or ammunition, something like that. And I'm like, "Oh,
Wonderful.
thanks.
Just
That's
what we
great."
needed.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
God.
that's definitely the on my 2024 bingo. I mean, it's the middle of the year.
I know
Maybe
we've got to have a little something to stir it up.
exactly. So today we're talking about obligatory familial relationships. And this is a topic that
Yes.
you wanted to pick because you felt so drawn to this topic. Could you tell us why?
So I I feel like I have almost, sacrificed a decent portion of my life for my family and for, the relationships that kind of it had been ingrained in me from the beginning that they were, sacred and basically, you know, it's something that you did it or you were shunned or basically I you couldn't. You had to, keep up with whatever, basically whatever they need or what I mean. And so I I did, and I feel like it really robbed me of like a decent portion of my life. So
That makes sense. You know, as a society, especially American society, we're taught that family is everything. We're taught, oh, American family values. We have to be with our family. If you aren't like spending a lot of time with your family, what the hell are you doing? You're being selfish. I mean, from
right.
my perspective, I was always taught that family comes first. So when I was, say, middle school and I started to differentiate a little bit and not want
Mm-hmm.
to spend like my every waking moment with my mother, she got
Mm-hmm.
really angry at me and was like, "No, you need to be home. You need to not go out with your little friends. You need to be home and we're having family time and we're going to do what we're going to do as a family. Like societal norms dictate that family bonds are paramount. Like your
Right.
relationship with your mom is like the best relationship that you have. That's the foundation of everything that you're going to go forward with. And there's like an expectation to maintain close ties with your family members and support them, especially during difficult times, and
Right.
participate in family events, traditions, and stuff like that. It's like you have no way of saying no because if you say no, especially as a kid, you're seen as selfish or self-centered or uncooperative or, you know,
Yeah, you have to face the repercussions, and sometimes they're a little more than just words. Or I mean, it's I definitely got a lashing out a time or two from both of my parents or even grandparents. I mean, it extends much further than just your mom and your dad. I feel like, I was obligated to kind of deal with my aunts and uncles to kind of deal with and thing qualities and characteristics you wouldn't normally deal with in your every, just walk of the mill people that you meet out. You have to deal with like you're like, really? I can't. It's I mean, I will never forget like several times, and I want to touch on this later too. But like that, my uncle or my aunt or whoever would just start like a brawl, and we would just all sit there and watch them like it was a show because it was just what was it like, and that's so just abnormal and traumatizing. Like those are the times that I remember. I don't remember like the nice fun cookout, like I feel like you really do like those rough ones really stick with you over everything.
And it can create a sense of, especially they would stick out, but they can create a sense of like fear and anxiety around around your family, because you don't know whether or not there's going to be a fight and whether or not you're going to be involved in that
Hmm.
fight. And so it's like, I have to keep my guard up. And
Constantly on edge.
exactly. And if you are told, constantly that your family's everything, you need to protect your family, you need to respect your family, you need to love your family, and your family is, threatening you, maybe overtly, or covertly. It doesn't have to be like getting in your face and telling you you're a piece of shit. It could be the actions that they're having around you. Like,
Hmm.
it fucks with your sense of self, and it also messes with any relationships that you try to create in the future, because your foundation of, okay, what do relationships look like from your family, also will make you start to pick relationships that may not be healthy,
Hmm.
or you start to act in ways that may not be healthy because that's all you've been demonstrated.
Right. No, I totally agree. Like, I think when I had my first like serious relationship and I got to see what the dynamic of what a quote unquote normal family was, and how they communicated with each other and conducted themselves around one another, I was like, oh my fucking God, like this is what it's like. Am I in paradise? Like, and almost to the point where I was weirded out by it or thought, oh, like they're being fake or like, and no, that's just how normal people act. I was just subjected to chaos all the time. So I feel like I'm very thankful for that family in particular, because I feel like they really taught me what it was like to like, I don't know, to love unconditionally and to set boundaries, but still be able to show that, just normalcy basically of what a normal family dynamic is supposed to be. So I will always be thankful for them for that.
Yeah, and getting into what normal family dynamics look like. It is when the parents love, provide, and support their children, not just like provide financially, but provide direction and
Hmm.
either lead by example or by instruction. And a lot of people confuse parental to child relationships with they have to be reciprocal. That's not true. Children shouldn't
Hmm.
have to emotionally support their parents at all. Like at all. Even until you're like an adult and your parent starts to deteriorate, that's when you start to have more of a parental role towards your parents. But until then, you're not supposed to emotionally support your parents, not be, their, therapist. That is
Shoulder to
something.
cry on. Yeah.
Exactly. That is something that I had to deal with growing up, was whenever my mother was upset, my dad would send me or one of my siblings to go comfort mommy, go cuddle mommy, go hug mommy. Mommy's sad. And that created an issue with me going forward in the future of, it's very hard for me to see anyone upset, and I really try to pacify them instead of letting them feel those feelings, because we need those feelings. We need
Hmm.
those upset feelings. And have you seen Inside Out 2? Because oh my God,
No, I haven't.
amazing. Oh, it's so good. Have you seen the first Inside Out?
No.
Jace, they're
I
so
know.
good. They're so
I,
good.
what is it about again? I feel like I've heard people talk about it, but I haven't like, I don't know, really. I'm not really a movie watcher or like a TV watcher, really.
I understand that, but from my perspective, movies, TVs are everything. I want to be a film director one day. So I'm going to share my screen with you,
Ooh.
and you're going to be able
Okay.
to see, because I like being able to show these things. So, Inside Out 2 is
Ooh.
the most recent movie,
Uh-huh.
and it is about the emotions. So, from the first movie, you had you had the emotion joy, which is the yellow girl in the center. Then you have
Hmm.
disgust, which is the green girl. Then you have sadness, which is the blue one. Then you have anger, which is the red, and fear, which is the purple.
Mhm.
And basically, they're the little emotions in your head that dictate how you're supposed to feel about any given circumstance. And they essentially, the movie follows these characters going on a journey to understand that each of them have equal importance. Joy is not more important than sadness. Joy is not more important than anger. Anger is not more important than disgust. They all have their roles in keeping, the main character, Riley, safe and helping her navigate the world. And so the next movie follows new emotions because she's going through puberty. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
So
that's so
there's
cute.
embarrassment, there's anxiety, which is the orange one, there's envy, which is the little teal one, and there's ennui, which is like boredom, which you don't
Mhm.
see her at the main control because she's like too bored to be on it. So she like lays on a desk or no, a chair. There she is. She lays on a chair, a settee, and she just is on her phone the entire time. So it's fun.
Right.
And then there's also nostalgia, which is pretty cool. But she's like represented by a little old lady that just comes in every so often and says, remember when we did this thing? So
Oh.
it's a really cute movie, and I love it so very much because it helps children and adults conceptualize
Mhm.
what are our emotions and how can they be negative, and then how can they
Mhm.
also be positive and when they conflict with one another. Because as we get older, we get more complex emotions. And bringing that into a family dynamic, the first movie talked about how there were different islands that represented different aspects of the main character Riley's personality. So there's Family Island and there's Friendship Island. And in this next movie, Friendship Island is huge and is overshadowing Family Island because as you grow up, your family dynamics, yes, are important, but they aren't paramount. You should be able to create more interpersonal relationships with other people that are
Mhm.
equal, that are reciprocal. And a lot of times with our family, you know, relationships, it feels like you have to. It doesn't really feel like you want to. And I
Mhm.
wanted to get into that with you. I'm asking you the question, when did you start to realize that you could have other relationships with people that were more fulfilling than the ones that you had with your family?
So I honestly feel like I realized it really late. Um, I think that I've really realized just how severe the I don't know the the dynamic that we like growing up with my mom and my dad, how I guess the bond it was just so significant and so just like I mean we were basically like the only thing each other had, but my parents made it that way. Um, I did not have like friends come over when I was growing up. I didn't have like sleepovers. I didn't have anything like that. So I was very isolated, um, with the exception of my grandma, my nana, um, and that was basically it. So, I mean, when you're isolated for 18 years, and I like went through a big transformation when I turned 19, and I had weight loss surgery. And so that was like basically my graduation present. I was like, listen, I don't like, I want to start a new whatever, be a new me. And so, like, after that transformation was when I really started to get into the world, I guess, like put myself out there because I was like, hey, I'm hot, bitch. Like, I'm skinny and like, woohoo. And so I would say that right around then is when I was kind of like, okay, like this is not really normal. This isn't, and that's when I literally had been out on the town for like 4 months honey, and got scooped up for 5 damn years. Um, and so I just got back into like this whole what is, you know, what is making friends, what is, this whole thing just recently, really. Um, I'd say within the last couple of years. So, I mean, I was like 23, 24 before I was like, oh, well, I mean, I can find I can find more elsewhere, or and even in the relationship, like my parents both played a significant role in like influencing what went on. Like it was just so I feel like almost like I've just had a coming of age, or like a I don't know. And I I guess it just I feel kind of robbed. I feel irritated. I feel just duped, basically. And so it's a lot of anger. It's a lot of you know anger at myself, anger at others. Uh, but I feel like I'm coming to terms with it, and I am quickly coming to terms with it. Like making changes in my life to be able to, I guess, cope and move on and realize that it's okay to let go of that and find better and make myself happier because I matter.
Yeah. And it sounds like your parents created a lot of interdependence within the family dynamic because, growing up, children do need to be dependent upon their parents. But it sounds like your family was fostering a sense of obligation to reciprocate and maintain these relationships. Like not just, chores or everybody's cooking for each other, but it's like when you're in a interdependent family relationship and you start to differentiate yourself from your family or discover who you are, a lot of families see that as an attack on the family values.
The
If you
threat, yeah.
if you have like any differing opinions or differing lifestyles as well. I was raised in a very conservative Christian church and family. And so the fact that when I turned 18, I wanted to dye my hair pink was apparently the biggest slap in the face to my family members of being like, you have such natural, beautiful curly hair, beautiful brown curly hair. Why would you want to ruin it? This is our family heritage. And I was like, I want to look like Pinkie Pie. What do you mean? Let me
I
live my
love your
life.
hair.
Thank you. I did it again for my birthday because I really want it. Like since I was a little kid, I would draw myself with pink curls.
Mhm.
And it was just my lifelong childhood dream. When I turned 18, I was like, you guys can't tell me shit. I'm going to dye my hair. Because, of course, I would ask my parents growing up all the time if I could dye my hair. And they would always tell me no, that it was wrong. It would look gaudy. It would look bad. It would look trashy. And when I finally did it, I was like feeling myself. And the funniest thing was, the biggest, hater of anything tattoos, pink hair was my Mimi. And my Mimi kind of looked at me and she was like, okay, you kind of look good. She was like,
Even
okay,
Mimi had to admit.
yes. And she's from Jamaica. So there's like a whole nother level of just, you know, cultural, like we don't do that. We don't dye our
Mhm.
hair like that. She came from a whole different generation of like we don't do that. That's not something that we do. And so I feel like in my own family dynamic, I am the catalyst for a
Mhm.
lot of just change. I am still out of 12 cousins, I'm the only one that has dyed hair. I'm the only one that has tattoos.
Oh my lord.
I'm the only one that started to live with, my boyfriend, now fiance, outside of marriage, which was like
Mhm.
a huge no-no. Purity culture was like,
Mhm.
how dare you? And I am the only one that has a degree in like performing arts that they don't think is financially viable, which is
Oh
like
lord.
living it up. So I am the black sheep of the family. I am the
Mhm.
weird cousin. I am the weird sibling. And the whole fact that I have a podcast talking about trauma is just like the cherry
Oh,
on the top of the
icing on the cake. Oh, I bet.
yes, it's just like I am doing everything that my family would not do and told me do not do it. But I feel like a lot of they never said do not do it or you're going to be kicked out of the family, but that is a thing that happens to a lot of people,
Oh yeah.
especially when it comes to expressing your sexuality because I'm a
Oh yeah.
bisexual person and I go by they them pronouns. So when I went to college and started dating women and also put they them in my Instagram bio, my mom
Mhm.
lost her shit.
I bet.
She was,
Like, oh God.
yes, she was so mad. She was like, college changed you. Like you're sinning. Like, I guess
It's not
so.
that deep, Mom. God.
I guess so. And it's really interesting because from my perspective, it it's not as bad as it could have been because a lot of people when they start to express themselves in an environment that is very closed and very against, self-expression or very much, the family. What is the family's outlook on society? What are our moral codes? And you go outside of that and they're worried about their reputation. It
Oh
can
yeah.
be very dangerous for a lot of
Mhm.
people when they start to express themselves in maybe a different way, not necessarily a wrong way, but a different way from the family values that they were raised in. Do
Mhm.
you feel like that happened with you?
So I I feel like I actually got really lucky, to be honest. I think that I was basically, I mean, I was always allowed to be whoever I wanted to be. That's one thing my parents did foster. My dad never said anything about me loving Barbies or what more than or dressing up or I mean, honey, I loved me a dress. I would put I'll have to show you some pictures. You'll be like, oh my lord, look at a hot little thing. But I feel like my grandma, she kind of, I don't know, encouraged me. Like she would be like, I guess kind of adding it on or whatever. And my nana, my dad's mom, honey, she would take me out of school. That lady would, so I could go sit and gossip with her at like lunch and whatever. I missed half the school year every year. She'd be like, "I'm here to pick Jace up," and I'm like, that is where I learned more than I did in school from sitting with 90-year-olds and gossiping all day. But we just like, yeah, they just allowed me to kind of be who I wanted to be. I mean, it was very everybody. I always say they knew when I come out of my mama's pussy that I was that was it. I was a homo. Like, but so it was never like a thing, I guess. And I think when I watched Pose, I really like got a good sense of, and you hear it all the time. You hear about people's like horror stories when they do come out to their family or when they do start expressing themselves. But watching that show really made like a huge impact on me. Just it made me thankful for how easy I did have it. um but yeah, I went buck wild. I of course my parents didn't know this, but like I was down, like I was on Craigslist, honey, at like 13, 12, 13. Oh God. I know, a shame, really. And just, I mean, expressing myself and doing what I did. And I feel like, you know, that allowed me to like not really, I don't derive as much of my trauma from like that, or really any of it, or feel like, I missed out, or because I did get to live out who I was. And I think that's why I have became, I guess the personality I am today, and like just because I was able to freely express myself and grow into who I was going to grow into.
And that's such a blessing. That's such a blessing. that your
Hmm.
family allowed you to be who you were, not just allowed, but embraced who you were. Because yeah, that doesn't happen with everyone. That definitely did not
Hmm.
happen with me. Um, and something that I think is really crucial is, even though your family embraced, your sexuality and your identity, hearing that it sounds like they didn't really have a lot of um, protection for you when it came to, you being on Craigslist or online with stuff like that,
Hmm.
because that is very dangerous,
Yes.
especially for, children, because you were a child, children
Hmm.
who are exploring their sexuality, and they don't have the tools from their parents to tell them what is right and what is wrong. And so they often get themselves into situations that could easily be avoided if the parents talked about it. And
Hmm.
that can quickly turn dangerous. And
Right.
that is not unique for people in the LGBTQIA plus community, of not having parents who are equipped to discuss sexuality with their
Hmm.
children. And so the kids, curious, of course, it's not your fault that you did that, go and try to explore it on their own themselves without, supervision, without protection. And a lot of children die. A lot of
Hmm.
children get trafficked. A lot of children get abused.
Hmm.
And that's pretty universal. I remember Kick, like KIK.
Oh God,
Oh,
yes.
Lord. The people that
Messages.
were, yes. I was just a little kid, and I was a part of, I don't know, something in school. And one of the girls was like, "Oh, we message through Kick because our parents won't give us like real phones." And so I got on there thinking that, oh, this is just a fun little social media site. The amount
Mm.
of PP pics that I
Oh
received
yeah.
as a child.
Hmm.
And another thing about my parents that I will criticize to the day I die, when sex ed came up in school, they took me out of school. I did
Oh my
not
gosh.
get sex ed at all, ever. I
Oh
never
my
got
gosh.
sex ed. I never learned about like sex education until college, which is bullshit. That is
Hmm.
horrible. The only like sexual education that I learned was about having a period. And I didn't even learn it until I got one, which is also
Hmm.
insane. I got one when I was like, I'm open about it when I was 14, which is pretty
Hmm.
late. And I thought I was dying. And I ran to my dad because my dad was the most safe like parent that I had. And I was like,
Hmm.
"Dad, I'm dying. Dad, I'm dying. I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding. I'm peeing blood." And my dad had to tell me because my mom refused to. And so my dad was like,
Oh.
"Okay, do you want tampons?" I was like, "I don't know what a tampon is." He's like, "Do you want pads?" I was like, "I don't know what a pad is." So my
Mm.
dad had to take me to the store with him and be like, "Okay, what do you prefer? You got to read the box." And he made me read like the entire like fold out sheet that's like this long, and
Hmm.
like say, "Don't ever leave it in your vagina for more than like
Oh
4 hours or you will die." And that was also traumatic. Like, I'm
God.
gonna
Yeah,
die.
I was fixing to say that sounds horrible. I mean, and that's something you'll associate like with. I mean, every time you go to get a box of tampons, if you're anything like me, that'll pop into your mind, and it's just it never leaves you. And I think that parents just don't realize that. I mean, everything to a child matters in my eyes. I mean, there's things that I think my parents really innocently said or did that you know, I will carry with me to the day I die. And they've never thought about it again. So
Mhm.
it's like, you know, I just feel like people are, especially if you're a parent, you just have to be careful. I mean, with your kids. And I can't imagine, Lord, I would be traumatized. I would be like, and for like your mama, like to not, that hurts my feelings for you. I mean, I feel like that's something every like mother and daughter should share.
Yeah, it is something that every mom and daughter should share. And I remember being in, I don't know, high school, and I was afraid to ask my mom for a tampon because, her not wanting to talk to me about these things really closed the door that even as I was getting older, I was afraid that that door is closed. That's a boundary. I can't cross that because there's another level to it. My mother has narcissistic personality disorder, and she was diagnosed, and she, you know, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And it was like whenever she made these boundaries, it wasn't safe, not just, emotionally safe for me to just say, hey, I need help or I need assistance. It
Mhm.
was so frustrating. It was so frustrating to not be able to ask for help. And I remember, you know, I guess when I was like 14 and I had my first period, my dad was the one who gave me a purity talk. My mom was like, oh, go talk about it with your dad. And my dad gave, it's a horrible analogy, but gave the analogy of like your purity, your sexuality is like a clean white linen. And the more you give yourself, like any part of your body to another person, the more stained your linen becomes. And you
Mhm.
can't wash out that linen. And that sucks.
Oh,
That's oh,
that will draw. I mean, if I would be the damn brownest nasty. I mean, I can't even think about that. I don't even. But I couldn't imagine like thinking. I don't know. I mean, I I don't know. I mean, I've had a partner or two, so it's. I guess I've come to terms with it. But good lord, I mean, was every like anatomy based talk like that? Like, do you have just kind
yeah.
of
I mean, it
scarred the
was,
shit out of you, like everything?
yeah, it really did. And when I went to college, I was like very much, I learned about what sex really was in college. And I was very much like, okay, I'm going to do everything I want. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to try everything. And so even that happening, which I learned about safe sex, I was very safe, very, very safe with everything. But it was just another layer of I can't even talk about any of this with my parents. I can't talk about having a boyfriend. I can't talk about having a girlfriend. I can't talk to any of them about this because I'm going to get judged. I'm going to get criticized, and then I'm going to get abandoned,
Mhm.
which is something a lot of people face. And when you're growing up and you have this distorted perception of relationships based on the relationship that you had with your parents, like you start to fall into abusive relationship patterns, and
Mhm.
you may not understand how to recognize or establish boundaries leading to further unhealthy relationships in the future. And so your bro, your homie got into really abusive relationships in college. Oh no.
Lord.
And because I couldn't talk to my parents about it because they were like, "Oh, sex is a sin outside of marriage."
Mhm.
I didn't know how to get out of them, and I actually had to get my brothers to break up with people for me. They didn't know how.
Oh, what? I hate that.
I didn't know how. And my siblings, like, it's not that I wanted to break up with them. My siblings were like, no, you're not continuing this relationship. Like
This is no
multiple times.
good. Yeah.
We're like, this is no go. Because one of my siblings is a couple years younger than me. So he went to college, the same college as I did.
Mhm.
And he witnessed some behavior from a boyfriend at the time. And he was like, you're not dating this guy anymore. We are breaking up with him. It's a we. He's like, we are breaking up with him. You are not
Mhm.
bringing him ever again. If I see him around ever again, I will punch him in the face. Like he was really angry. And that's like another thing within like family relationships. I had such a close relationship with my brothers that they were almost an extension of me, or I was an extension of them. And we were so
Literally.
reliant upon one another for so many different things, including financial stability. Because when we went to college, our dad was hit by a car, and our mom cut us off financially from everything, car insurance, health
Oh,
insurance, phone plans, everything. And so we were suddenly, what do? Oh, we got to rely on each other. If we don't,
mhm,
we're going to like sink. We don't know how to do any of this stuff because we weren't taught. We were
right.
so financially reliant upon our parents that the sudden independence was like jarring. And so
Mhm,
all of my siblings relied on me. So suddenly I was parent. That's
mhm,
another crazy level, to the point where even to this day, my birthday just happened. My birthday party just happened. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, I'm noticing a dynamic between you and your siblings where you're like their parent. You're like their mom. Like it's
mhm,
your birthday party and you're serving them food. They're adults. They can serve themselves." And
mhm.
I was like, "This isn't normal?" They're like, "No, that is not normal. They're at your birthday party and it's almost like you're hosting a party for them. Like, that's not normal."
Well, and I think it comes from like, I guess, I mean, I never wanted to like, every time I would ask like my mom to do something or whatever, like if I was like, hey, can you, I don't know, like if it was a birthday, can you serve the, it would always be like, oh, I just do everything for you. Or I just, and I'm like, bitch, shut up. So I just got into the habit of doing it myself and just taking care of whatever it was. I mean, myself, so I didn't have to hear it because it was always a repercussion. And it was a, and my sister, I feel like from a very, very early age, I didn't want her to have to deal with what I, had already, went through. And so I kind of shielded her and just, did the best I could from the time that she was 4 or 5 years old, or I mean, from the time that she was a baby. But when she was 4 or 5 years old, I was then old enough to like really take more responsibility and just care for her. And she, I mean, she's 21, and she will acknowledge today that I was, I mean, her parent basically. And so that creates a, I mean, hell, you're 10, 11 years old and you're mommy dearest. And even my friends still, I mean, my friends to this day will call me Mama Jace or Mama or Big Mama or whatever, because I just, it's like I'm always looking to nurture, maybe to, feed that part of myself that wasn't nurtured or taken care of like that.
Yeah, and
So,
that's a really good thing to point out, because if we're raised, older siblings are raised to essentially be third parent or even just parent and
mhm,
provide for their siblings, when you start to get into other relationships, you fall into this pattern of, treating, say, your partner or your friends as if they were your children and taking care of them. And so you're constantly like filling into other people's cups and they don't know.
reciprocate.
Yeah, they don't reciprocate back to you. And you don't know that they should reciprocate back to you. And that's also another form of an abusive relationship that you can get into,
Mhm,
because your needs are being neglected or your wants are being neglected. Because if you're constantly putting other people up on a pedestal, even like unintentionally, you're not feeding your soul.
right.
It's not helping you. And I can relate, because a lot of my friendships, like going forward in college, and it was like I was the mother of the group. I was the
Mhm,
mother to make sure that everyone was having fun. I'd host all the parties. All the parties were at my dorm or at my apartment. Like everybody would ask me about what they needed, what they wanted, what when the party was happening. No one would show up on time. And I would exhaust myself. And still, while the party's going on, I'm hosting it.
mhm.
Even if it was my own birthday party, I'm hosting it. I'm getting everybody their food. And I really want to break that pattern because it's exhausting. Like the day after my birthday,
100%.
I had to sleep the entire day. And I was supposed to do a vendor event because I make and sell beaded crystal jewelry. And I was
Mhm,
like, I can't go. I'm just exhausted. I need
mhm.
to sleep. I need to take a break.
I
But
think that comes from like just I mean, I feel like if I am in charge and I am orchestrating whatever situation it is, or, event or get together, that it has a much lower chance of having a bump in the road or anything going wrong. Like, I think it's just I mean, a trauma response, because you're like, okay, well, if I'm running this ship, then nobody can fuck it up, basically. And just sometimes, like, if it is something significant to me, like my birthday or something, the thought of letting someone else do it just to disappoint me, or because I'm so used to being disappointed, or just to, for somebody to get into it, or somebody, I mean, just something. You're so used to the, the chaos, that you're just like, well, fuck it, I'll do it myself, or we won't do it at all. Like, literally, I would rather not have a birthday than it go to hell. So I
That
totally
makes
get
so
that.
much sense. Yeah. I'd rather ensure that everything is going to go to plan than have that anxiety, that not knowing, something could go wrong. Because
Hmm.
as a kid, you told us that these family gatherings would often go awry and
Hmm.
have some physical violence. And so, yeah, of course, your anxiety is trying to protect you. Be like, okay, we're going to make sure we plan for every eventuality so that even if, say, something goes wrong, I'm prepared. I know what to do, because the not knowing what to do probably kills you.
Oh my God. I mean, it, and we're talking like on my level, my dad and my uncle love a good brawl. Well, the last time that my uncle came up, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. They were like, they had went down to the lake or whatever, and when they came in, it was always like a big family affair, because they lived out of state or whatever, and we would all come to my nana's and kind of gather. Well, they had went down to the lake and like spent the day together, drinking like fish, of course. And so I don't know what happened at the lake or whatever, but they end up getting back to my nana's, and something happens, and gunshots. Yeah. And he bashed my dad's skull in with like the back of a pistol. And I literally, like, I mean, those are like regular occurrences, like just stuff like that, wild shit that's like, God, I mean, I would be scarred if I went through. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of dynamic, like, with my family. And, that's what, like, my dad's side, my mom's side, they're almost so, I don't know, so reserved and pretentious that it would never happen with them. But they isolate me and my sister and kind of push us out of the family dynamic, and have made us become basically black sheeps, because they think that we're like them, when all we really needed was, you know, some stability that they could have given us, or, just shelter from the chaos and bullshit on the other side of the family. And then the side of the family that's chaotic, they, think that me and my sister are kind of pretentious like them, or like get financial assistance from them, or like, just it's like the polar opposite. So you're isolated right in the middle with nobody, and you're like, well, I mean, screw y'all, all y'all. I mean, shit, I don't want to put up with chaos, and I don't like pretentious people, so shit, that's what I that's what the point I'm at is I do not care. Like, my dad, that whole family dynamic, it is not worth it to me to continue hurting myself over and over. I mean, that's like, I mean, I've seen the analogy: you get bit by a snake, and then you go back to ask it why it bit you so it can bite you again. That doesn't make any sense. And then on the other side, there's no amount of money in the world, or no amount of security, that is worth my mental health or my well-being. I would rather starve, literally, because I have just had it. And you, I think that's just the realization that we were talking about earlier. When did you come to, realize that you could be fulfilled elsewhere? That's kind of where I'm at. I feel like I'm it's almost at the climax to where I literally want to be like to both sides. Um, and I think I am, honestly, like I'm so done. And I think that TikTok and just this whole journey has really made me realize that people are kind and people are, loving and supportive. And it truly, like, I think all my life I was kind of, told that nobody out there wants to help you. Nobody out there is going to, be real and support you and love you like we're going to, or whatever. And that comes back to like feeling duped or being like, well, I was fucking lied to, because you literally have strangers that are everything you've always needed, but your family was telling you that that didn't exist. And so you're like, I mean, I could have been getting this the whole time. Like it almost breaks your heart.
It definitely breaks your heart. And I relate to that too. That isolation of, no one is going to love you like I do, or no one will ever love you as much as your mama loves you. Cause that's also a societal thing that people say normally. Like, no one
Mhm.
will ever love you as much as your mom loves you, or as much as your dad loves you. There's like no love like your parents, but then your parents aren't showing you love. And so you have a misconception of what love is. And when you go outside of that family dynamic and you meet people who want to know you and love you and appreciate you and want to be there for you, it's like such a shock. I mean, like, wait, I've been lied to my
Mhm.
entire life, not just like overtly, but also by omission.
Mhm.
Like, that their feelings of guilt associated with not fulfilling perceived family duties. Like, this guilt can stem from internal values or external pressure, like society's pressure on your family's everything.
Mhm.
It's such a shock to your system of being like, well, why couldn't family be actually this? You say that you're going to be this for me, and then you're not. And then when I go out into the world and I find it, you're then mad at me. Have you ever felt like your family was angry at you for being fulfilled outside of the family?
Absolutely. I think that, and it's been funny to see with like just, I've only been doing social media for like 6 months, and just kind of seeing what that was all about. And it's funny, or not funny, it's honestly fucking sad. It hurts my feelings to watch, my family so obviously, show envy or jealousy and be like, I mean, basically try and sabotage or do whatever they, I mean, I, it I swear to God, this has like been the universe's Mack truck in the face, damn freight train, to be like, listen, bitch, there's a whole world out there. You need to like the law of detachment or whatever the hell that is, and just let go and get the hell out. Like, and I think that a part of me is thankful, that that happens sooner or later, because there's people that go their whole damn life. I mean, up until their parents die or their sibling, whatever happened. And that's when they realize, and they're like, fuck, I dealt with that like all those, you don't have to deal with it. Um, and I feel like that's a very profound realization to have when you've been conditioned to be like, yes, mom, yes, dad, yes, and I don't know, it just excites me almost. I feel like I feel like I've found treasure or something. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, this is gonna be a fun ride. Uh,
Yeah, that
so
is treasure.
mhm, yeah, it's been really something. And I feel like I've kind of been able to release pieces of me that I've had pent up for, you know, God, years, and some all my life. Like I have recently been like coming to terms with the fact that I probably am autistic, and the little idiosyncrasies that my family criticized me for, or that they would nitpick and make you self conscious about. Um, they're what people love in me the most, And I'm like, so why was I hiding that, And it's just been, I don't know. I just feel like it's an awakening that I've never had before. So it's it's to be going through that like in real time, and but still dealing with like the whole, I don't know, it's still heartbreaking to let go. Um, I'll
Of
always love
course.
all my family, and I'll always, they'll always have a place in my heart. But I feel like at some point, if you have came from a toxic environment or a dynamic, you just have to choose yourself no matter what. I mean, nobody is going to love you like you love yourself. Nobody is going to be there for you like you're going to be there for yourself. And, you know, I, I self sabotage a lot too, just because sometimes I feel like I don't deserve to, go find that or whatever. And that I should be basically enslaved to this toxic narrative that I've been subjected to my entire life. But I'm also going through that too. Like, you do deserve it. You know, you're worth it. You still have a lot of years ahead of you, hopefully, and a story to write. And if that's with them, if they can, handle my boundaries and the way I want to live my life without having their influence, negative or whatever, then that's fine. Or if I have to cut them off, that's fine too. I will.
Mhm. That's a really good point to make of you don't want to get rid of your family. You love your family. You don't want them to not be a part of your life. But if they're in your life constantly criticizing you or crossing your boundaries or belittling your choices, it's like, I have to let you go. It's not, I'm getting rid of you, I'm throwing you away or throwing the relationship away. It's no longer a relationship because relationships aren't, you know, a two-way street where you are giving love and they're giving love, or you're giving criticism and they're giving criticism. That's not just what relationships are.
Mhm.
Relationships are give and take. And if they're constantly giving to you negativity, and then you can't, like in your soul, you're like, I can't give you negativity back.
Mhm.
You you're not withholding a relationship. You are creating a place where you say, no, I'm not going to do that back to you.
Mhm.
Because from my perspective, like especially family relationships, you are born into a family that is supposed to give you the building blocks, the tools that you need to continue on in life. Without them, right? If the tools that they're giving you are ones that enable, you know, bad behavior, like say you have a mother that teaches her son that he can get whatever he wants, he can do whatever he wants, and then that son goes out into life, taking advantage of people or
Mhm.
using people for their own gain. That's not a good relationship. That has no accountability. Or if you have a parent that constantly tells you that you're worthless, that nothing you'll ever do is enough, like your grades are the most important, your like productivity in the world is the most important, how much money you make is the most important. You're raising a child that has no value within themselves, and the only value that they have is in their works, and that person will get quickly burnt out and then feel immense guilt and shame for not being able to produce or not being a machine. And a lot
Yeah.
of those people take their lives because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, what's my value? What's my value? I have no value if I'm not producing. Therefore, I
Right.
shouldn't exist. There's so many different things that parents give to us as tools for our lives going forward. And if these tools are number one, not helping a child become self-sufficient
Mhm.
and not helping a child understand, boundaries within themselves, but also with other people, and not helping a child understand, you know, how to become emotionally stable. You Once you're an adult and you go into the world and you have to figure it all out for yourself, essentially, you feel like you're way behind everyone else. You feel
Mhm.
like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And you can't really rely on your parents for guidance because the guidance that they've been giving you is just shit. It's just like there's
Exactly.
nothing you can do. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And
I totally, yeah. I
oh,
think that the there's two things that I will never forget as long as I live that my mama and daddy have said to me. I can't even tell you how many times. I mean, just growing up, you wouldn't work in a pie factory tasting pies, which is a fucking. I am one of the hardest workers. Like to a fault, I think, because I had to hear that growing up. I mean, whatever it is that job or what, I will give it my all and run it. And so you wouldn't work in a pie factory tasting pies, or you are a worthless piece of shit. If I'm, honey, I was like 4 or 5 years old hearing you ain't nothing but a worthless piece of shit, and that really, I mean, I think sometimes I have had to tell myself, um, that I am basically worthy and that I am intelligent and that I've had to tell myself that so much that I feel like sometimes it comes across as like narcissism, or that it comes across as being, just self-absorbed, whatever you want to call it. But really, if I hadn't been the one to really ingrain that in my own mind, I really would have taken my own life, or, who maybe, I mean, not even done anything in my life, just still be sick. I mean, what do you do except for to put that into yourself and I had to do that from a very young age. And, you know, being, being your own support system, I feel like it sets up walls. It creates a view of the world that is very like, okay, strategic, or very like, what do I have to do to get here to then get here it's like I'm constantly just always on, got my guard up, like looking out for what I need to do to take care of me. And I feel like as an empathetic person and as someone who does care about other people and like does you get emotional, when I might do something that is, I guess self-motivated, or motivated to, or I'm motivated to advance myself, or whatever you want to call it. I do feel guilty, and I'm like, God, that does hurt my feelings. Like they'll never know, but I did do that to advance myself. I I feel like it's very hard for me to get out of that pattern. Just always being, ready to do what I got to do to get where I got to get, and I wish that I just envy kids that had those parents that were like, just, oh, well, you know what? We'll help you get there. Or you're enough, or, you are so intelligent that you can do this or that, and we'll do it together. We'll get there together. And God, I long for that. Oh, God. And I still do as an adult. I mean, I'm a 27-year-old man almost, and I still yearn for that in my daddy or my mama, and it's just not there. And I don't know when the hell I'm going to realize it, but hopefully
mm,
that's now.
yeah. And you never you never not need that validation and support. I really want to impart this upon people because I feel like there's a lot of negative stigma around validation.
Mhm.
We as humans, social creatures, need validation. we need support, we need community, we need interpersonal relationships, we need validation. Okay. And when you don't have it growing up, you search for it in
in all the wrong
sometimes,
places.
yeah, pretty negative ways.
Mhm.
And that's when it, say, becomes a detrimental thing if you're
Mhm.
searching for it in people that don't value you, or in people that want something from you. And so they're going to portray like they value you so much that when that is taken away, it creates that hit to your sense of self. Like low self-esteem, continuous abuse, especially emotional and psychological, can severely damage an individual's self-worth, and constant belittling, criticism can lead to internalized negative beliefs about yourself. It confuses your identity. Like it can cause confusion on your values, and you might struggle with understanding who you are outside of the abuse, which then creates guilt and shame and blaming yourself, and not understanding what is manipulation. Because it sounds like to me that your family constantly manipulated you, called you worthless and shit and garbage, and then said, oh, we love you and no one else will love you as much as we love you. And
Like, this is
so,
love. That's all I knew as
yeah,
love. Yeah.
that's horrible. And that probably gave you so many trust issues outside of your family relationships, of trying to create, friendships. And if they're telling you all these nice things all the time and no negative things, you're like, why? What are you doing? Why are you trying to butter me up? Why are you
Mhm.
telling me these things? Because you may not believe them.
Right. No, there is and I will never be able to thank her enough. My best friend growing up, her mom, wild ass woman, honey. She was a wild woman. Um, but she truly taught me what it felt like I mean, to be included and to not give a fuck what anybody thinks, and to just live in my own authenticity. And I will never be able to thank her enough. She, I feel like a lot of my don't give a fuck, and like just, I don't know, just raw, like, I am who I am, take it or leave it, whatever, is from her. And, you can look at it as a bad thing because, it it does come across sometimes like I'm seeking out that validation from other people, or like I'm acting out in order to maybe get a response, or to, you know, just have somebody say whatever I'm seeking, or whatever people think I'm seeking. But it's actually just me, like, I I've always been this person. So it's like funny for everybody to see and be like, oh my God, like he's just really went off the fucking rock. Like, but it's like, no, bitch, I was just masking and putting on a facade because I thought that this version of me would be, from my parents that told me nobody wants to see that, or nobody wants to hear that, you fucking dumbass. Well, like, when I would show that to them, they would always be like, ugh. But I found a safe space in her, and I will never be able to repay her for that. I will always appreciate her. Um, but had it not been for her being an escape, I I know I would have. I can't even tell you how many times that I even tried to kill myself. I mean, I attempted it just because being a chubby gay, in rural Appalachia, honey, going to school. Oh God, have mercy. It's oh, those were some tough times. But honey, she's like, fuck him, just fuck him. Oh, you would have to meet her. She's funny as hell. But yeah, she stepped in and was really what I needed at the time, all through middle school and high school. And I, I mean, she, she raised me, for lack of a better term,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So,
Yeah. She sounds amazing. I
oh,
would love
she
to
is.
meet her. She sounds amazing. But having someone be there to show you that who you are is acceptable, is worthy of love, is worthy of appreciation. You know, you deserve to be yourself and not mask and not, you know, conform to other people's expectations is amazing. It is amazing. I can't think of a person that ever did that for me. I had to be that for myself. And I think that's why YouTube was so crucial to me growing up, because it was like my little window to the outside world, because I was very sheltered, very sheltered. I never had sleepovers growing up. Like at other people's houses, they always had to come to my house, and that was few and far between. I could count on one hand how many sleepovers I actually had, because my parents were like, oh no, we don't know what they're going to do, which, you know, is fine. But even the people that they knew, or even like family that they knew that we could hang out with in person, my mom wanted so much control that the possibility of anyone else having an influence on me, she didn't want that. She didn't want it at all. So when YouTube kind of started becoming really a thing, I was so excited, and I made my first YouTube channel at 8 years old, and it was called My
Oh,
Grace TV. And I made videos with all of my friends, little vlogs and stuff. You guys can follow or see the remnants of My Grace TV on my personal channel. Woo, on my personal channel, it's Grace
I'm gonna
Lauren
write that
Taylor.
down.
Grace Lauren Taylor is my personal channel. You can see like the archives of My Grace
Hmm.
TV, because I have always had this exuberant personality of just, I'm here, I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to make these silly videos with my friends. And I would direct little movies with my dogs as characters. And it was everything to me. It was so fulfilling. And when I was in middle school, I was filming with some kids on the bus, and I made consent waivers for them, like as a kid, which is insane. I made little consent waivers and I had them sign it. And so that they could be in my videos. And I got called into the principal's office, and they're like, what is this? The consent.
Oh Lord.
They're like, what is this? What is your YouTube channel? And someone's parent complained about it, because a girl brought it home and it had the parent's signature on it. It had her signature and the parent's signature to be on YouTube. And I got in trouble. And instead of my mom being like, okay, we'll take that video down, my mom deleted that entire channel, so that
Mm.
everything that I had worked hard for, My Grace TV, was completely erased. And I kept having to start over and start over and start over, because my dad was like, yeah, make your videos. He would buy me cameras and stuff like that. He's like, make your videos, learn editing, learn audio production, do with that what you will. My mom
Mhm.
would keep deleting it, because not for protection of me, which, you know, child protection is a real thing. That wasn't it. She didn't want her abuse being showcased on the internet. There would be some times where it was very prevalent, like her screaming at me and me cutting the video, like, or cutting the video abruptly because she was screaming at us. That it was like, of course you wouldn't want that on the internet. She's like, I don't want anybody knowing how much of a horrible parent that I actually am. And when I came home from college one day, before my mom like wiped like the entire computer, because she was like on a spree of just deleting anything that had to do with me. She completely, like, she turned my bedroom into her office. So she threw away all my stuff, and she was about to wipe.
God.
Yeah. She was about to wipe the computer. So I recovered some of those videos of little me, and
Mhm.
I put them on my personal channel, which she has no way to get to. And I did that as fast as I could, because that was my way of self-expression. And she wanted to diminish it. She was like, you could never make a career out of this. You could
Mhm.
never be a director. You can never be a singer. It was just, I wanted to prove her wrong. That's what
Mhm.
I wanted. And that's what I still want to, is that even though you, my mother, are such an unhealed person, that doesn't mean that I have to be an unhealed person. That doesn't mean that I'm going to continue the cycle of abuse, the generational trauma, and inflict abuse on other people. I'm going to do the exact opposite. And so that's also why I created my podcast, was to showcase that even though we think this is normal, abuse is abuse. You know, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Neglect is abuse, physical abuse, like hitting someone. There's also like sexual abuse within a family. Like I was hit on the butt so often, or smacked on the boobs. They were calling flipping the patties, is what they would call it. And it's like, that's sexual abuse as well. They may not be, it may not be overtly sexual, but if it's like touching without consent, that's sexual abuse. Like,
honey, that is honestly like the culminating point of when my like childhood kind of, I don't know, fades as a memory. Like there's probably a good couple years that I don't remember because I was molested. And, it really, the fact that it went on right under my parents' noses, and that if they would have just paid a little bit more attention, and I mean, it goes back to like we were talking about with the Craigslist thing, if they would have just paid a little bit more attention, then I wouldn't have been subjected to that and I wouldn't have had to be a victim. And then the fact that nothing was ever done about it. The fact that the rest of my family told me that I was lying. Honey, we're talking probably this happened a good 30 different times on different occasions. How does a 4 or 5 year old, like, you don't even know what sex is at 4 or 5? I mean, I'm watching Thomas the Tank Engine, honey. It doesn't compute. And so my whole family from then on, that's when I was the one that tried to get him, caught, or the one that tried to break up the family, or and I think they also saw something in me from an early age. I mean, I feel like you can tell when a person's like charismatic and they're just kind of different and stick out. Like I can tell it in other people. And I think that they tried to just suppress that so much that it all just like, I don't know. I feel like I just maybe disassociated those after that happened for a couple of years, and my memory kind of fades out around 4 or about 5 or 6, and it comes back to me. I'd say at about 8 or 9, maybe 9, 10, and that's a long time to. I mean, that's a gap. That's years, and for that to have happened to me, that literally, like, I don't even know. And then for me to go out to where he works, where I still shop at to this day, and pretend like nothing happened, literally talk to him, you know, do the whole, I don't know, the whole spiel like, oh, I hope you're good. Hope the kids are good. Like nothing happened to me, just because they made it seem like it wasn't a big deal, or made it seem like it wasn't, wrong, basically. For me to do that, that literally pains me every time. And like that it just kills me. But I do it, and do it with a smile on my face, because I mean, I'm not gonna let him have that power over me. I put it behind me, and hopefully it won't resurface in something else. It may, but we just got to move on and do what we got to do.
Yeah. I mean, how can you not disassociate when you are being physically abused in that way? How can you not? Disassociation is protecting yourself. It is your brain and your mind going, this is horrible what's happening to us. We're not going to let it affect us. We're going to go far away. We're going to protect ourselves. And the body may be experiencing the abuse, but we're not going to acknowledge the abuse. And then when you're an adult and you start to uncover these things that happened to you as a child, you have to relive that abuse. And that's horrible too, because healing isn't just, oh, I'm suddenly better now. Healing
Hmm.
is taking those steps to go through everything that you avoided or couldn't experience when you were being abused. It's going through everything. Like
And
the,
unraveling it to just, and it will
yes.
derail you. I mean, it's derailed me several times, just the different little, and you have to, I mean, if you're not careful, it will completely just, it will send you into a spiral that you may take 6 months to come out of, or, I mean, you just never know. Like, it's happened to me. God, I'm it's awful.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's real. It's real. And my
yeah.
entire childhood, neglect is a form of abuse. My entire childhood, my mom would just not put food in the house. 'Cause my mother was an abusive woman that used food as a way of control.
Hmm.
So what does that mean? She was an obese woman who
Hmm.
was constantly going on fad diets, and us kids would have to go on them with her. So anytime
Oh
she
my
was
God.
fasting, we all had to fast. If
My
she
God.
suddenly cut some food out of her diet because she was like, oh, I've read that this is bad for you, like freaking fruit, we were not getting that. I never
Oh
really
my
had,
Lord.
yeah, I never really had sodas or very much candy as a childhood like snack. Like I didn't really have chicken nuggets or stuff like that. Like we didn't really
Hmm.
go to restaurants or fast food, stuff like that, because my mom's like, oh, that's bad for you. But lo and behold, she would go out and go get that stuff for
Sneak
her.
around and,
Mhm. And she had a mini fridge in her room that was full of snacks. She had double locks on her door, so we couldn't even get inside her room. And no
oh
matter
my
if
God.
something was happening, like we couldn't go into her room. Her room was off limits.
Hmm.
And she was hoarding food when there was hardly any food in our fridge, or the food in our fridge was molding or rotten because she wouldn't cook for us. So as a child, I learned how to cook, how to clean, because she's also a hoarder,
Hmm.
massive hoarder. It it was just chaos. And I
Hmm.
developed OCD. I just
Hmm.
got diagnosed with OCD. I developed it because of the situation that I lived in. Like the long term effects of these things are expansive because I was constantly, going through, you know, these periods of intense fasting, like not having any food. um, I don't have an eating disorder now, but my body has created this disorder where I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism at 8 years old because my thyroid gland never got to develop properly because of the constant lots of food, not any food,
Yeah.
lots of food, not any food. And so now I have severe hypothyroidism. And so my body, I exercise every day. I eat pretty well. I got my raspberries in here. Ooh, raspberries.
Oh, that looks good.
And
And cream. Mm.
yes, I put just a little bit of cream. I love them. I had my
Ooh.
raspberries and strawberries. I always eat my strawberries first because they get mushy first. And
Mhm.
then I have, my whole grain pasta. I ate all my asparagus. I don't want to eat any more of the pasta. I'm good. But I ate all my asparagus. I am very good about, okay, what foods feel good for me to eat. I'm going to manage what I eat in a way that is fulfilling for me.
Mhm.
And I never had that as a child. And I am a heavier set person. I love my body. I love the way that my body looks. I'm happy. I'm very active. I go to the dog park 2, 3 hours a day and I am running with my dog. I am over 10,000 steps. By like 1 p.m., I'm at least 5 miles with my dogs because I'm
Mhm.
exercising, but my body does not look like I exercise at all. I'm a squishy person, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But because of all of the stuff that my mother told me constantly about how much she hated her body, how she hated my body, how I was
Mhm.
too chubby, how I needed to lose weight. And when I was starving, she thought I was the most beautiful I ever was. When I was like skin and bones, she's
Mhm.
like, that's when you were
Wow.
beautiful. It has
Mhm.
created such a horrible thing within my dynamic of looking at myself that I have to reaffirm myself, saying, no, you are healthy and you are getting healthier. You are giving your body all the things that it needs. It's going to take your body a while to catch up with your brain of being like, I don't need to hold on to this. I'm not starving. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to like hold on to this fat. I'm going to be okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
my body thinks like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go through another starvation period. And so
Yep.
it holds on. Your body like keeps the score of the trauma and the abuse that you went through. And
Right.
so it's like a whole thing. And I know myself. I'm like, I am not going to not eat to lose
Mm-hmm.
weight. Not going to do it because it doesn't work. Okay. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. I am not going to start limiting the foods that I can eat other than things I'm allergic to. I'm not going to start limiting them. I'm not going to start putting a label on food and saying, oh, that's bad or that's good, because that messes with your brain. I'm not going to do that. My mom did that my entire life. I'm not going to do that, because if you need eat, you need to eat, you need food, you need it. If you're going to start perceiving food as bad or as like a temptation, you create this thing in your brain where you're like, oh, I need to have it, and it's a limited resource, so you're going to eat too much of that thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to feel guilty about it. And I'm not gonna do it. If I want a cookie, I'm gonna get myself a cookie. I'm sorry. I'm not
Amen.
sorry. I'm gonna get myself a cookie. If I want my cookie, I'm gonna eat my cookie and I'm gonna be happy about it. If I want to go out and get a hamburger, I'm gonna eat my hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's gonna happen.
Amen. I'm telling, but mine is kind of the opposite to,
Tell me about
which is
it.
crazy. So, like, I almost hold animosity because I feel like I was a fucking foie gras, like a duck that was force fed almost, because it was always the, well, you're a growing boy, you want to get bigger, you want to get, and they blew me out, honey. They shoved enough cheeseburgers in me to, like, my nana every day, and I told you she'd like take me out of school, right? So we would go to like McDonald's every day for like lunch, or like if I was in school right after I got out of school, a snack wrap, two McDoubles, a large fry every day, every day. Honey, we'd go to Long John Silver's. I'd be eating
A
4 or 5
snack
pieces
wrap
of
though, I want them to bring those back, but continue.
Hardee's. Theirs is so close that it's incredible. Like, go get you one, honey.
Okay.
Delicious. Um, but like, eventually that caught up with me, and I gained weight, and my thing. So I, in the gay community with like men, I think that, you know, the beauty standards are just obscene, first of all. Um, and I literally, I cannot stand the my stomach. Like, I have stretch marks. I have like stretch marks on my shoulders just from, I mean, I'm 6'5", so like I'm a big guy, but especially on my stomach, there is nothing more hurtful than to be attractive to, these hot guys or whatever, and them, you know, think that the sun rises, it's sunny, everything's great, and then you take your shirt off and it's like a letdown, and you're like, oh my god, like, literally. And it has happened to me so many times that it just, I mean, I just hate that part of myself. And every time it happens, I think about my nana and us going to McDonald's. And I think of, and I'm like, who, I would not let my child, like, fuck no, you're not eating McDonald's every day. Like, I mean, that's not normal at all. And especially at that quantity, like, yeah, honey, get a 4-piece for a snack after school or something, like, if that. But I mean, that much, who the hell was not like, okay, maybe this child should not be eating it. I mean, if he's big as a house right now and you're still feeding him, like, that's just not. And so, I hold a lot of animosity towards her and my parents for letting that go on. And for, then subsequently, as an adult, everybody, my whole family, honey, it's like we went went to a theme park, got weight loss surgery. We're like one after the other going into, and I'm like, that is just wild. I mean, and to encourage, like, a 19-year-old or 18-year-old, oh yeah, just go have 80% of your stomach sawed out, and you'll never get it back for the rest of your life and never be normal, never be able to absorb vitamins like a normal person. You'll just basically, I mean, I don't have 10% of the energy that I had just because of the malabsorption and I mean, I can't eat really in like good quantity for like my size. I'm a big guy, and it's just like it's been thing after thing after thing, all induced by family or all encouraged by family or all, and it just, I don't know. I'm like, ooh, it's anger that
Yeah.
um, you know, I can't even explain. But then again, like we talked about, it's relief and it's happiness, and you feel like you found that treasure. And so I guess it comes across as you went crazy, but it's not crazy. It's just you're feeling all these emotions that I don't know, have just,
Suppressed.
yeah. And my frontal lobe, I feel like, has developed. I mean, I'm right in, and so I'm like, fuck, I can't do, it's just too much at one time, honey. And I feel like that happening has really like, it's, I have a completely different perception on things than I did even a year or two ago. And I'm like, what the hell? It really is true. I mean, when that happens, you're like, okay, okay. And for it all to be happening at one time, it is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I found out that my testosterone is lower than what a woman's is supposed to be for someone
Oh,
my age. So all the hormones, I'm like, Lord, it's a wonder. I mean, I don't even know how anybody's put up with me for the past however long, but I'm happy to be getting on T. So we'll
yeah.
we'll see if
Yeah.
it gets better. Yeah,
I
but
hope it gets
Lord,
better.
me too, honey. I
Hormonal
mean,
imbalances suck.
oh, I have just been so low on energy and like, I mean, I've been depressed, but not like, I mean, I've been much more depressed than what I've experienced, since I guess it's been low or gotten low. But I'm just ready to feel good again. So when they put that pellet in my arm, I hope it pumps and I give it to me because I'm ready to get that back up because that's been awful. But yeah, um,
Yeah.
I know I go off on little tangents. People always tell me,
No,
they're
I
like,
appreciate them and they are needed, especially in a podcast setting. They're good.
"Mm,
I appreciate them because, I'm the only one that edits all of this. And
mhm,
so honestly, I have ADHD, I've diagnosed ADHD. They're so
mhm."
entertaining because I get to edit them and I get to like relearn a lot of stuff because with me, the only way that I learn is hearing something multiple times. And so I love them. Thank you for the
Perfect,
tangents. Thank you for
perfect.
telling me stuff.
I,
But
I try and always wrap it back around somehow. That's what people are like. I don't know where you're going with it, but you always seem to come back to where you began. And I'm like, yeah, girl, it's always a journey.
it is a journey. It is a journey. Speaking directly to our listeners, what would be
Mhm.
your message about separating and individuating and differentiating yourself from familial relationships?
So I think that the sooner you realize, the better. But I also understand that we are all on the journey that the universe has intended for us. And we are all going to, you know, make our stops at our different stations at our own individual times. And so don't feel bad if it doesn't come to you until my age, or don't feel like, you need to hold back or continue to stay in a toxic dynamic if you realize it at 13 or 14 and you're like, fuck these people. Like, as soon as I want to go to boarding school to get out of here, like, whatever, I feel like your time will come when it's ready to come. But when you do realize it, act on it. Don't sit around and let it fester and, you know, grow into even more resentment. Or, I mean, because I feel like this, if you start acting, you know, as you are coming to the realization, there might still be a chance to set those boundaries and actually save, the relationship with the people you love. And so if you do, and you would like to continue a relationship with your family, the sooner the better. But if you're unable to, honey, choose yourself. Choose yourself, because you only, I know, YOLO, whatever the kids say or used to say, but whatever. But you literally only get one life, and you
Mhm.
only, I at least think that you should really, no matter who it is, no matter what, you feel for them, no matter, they say that if you really love something, to let it go. So if it is love that you feel like is holding you back, let them go and choose yourself. And that vice versa, let it go for yourself because you love yourself. And honestly, I think too, and this is a very recent thing for me. I'm sorry, this chair is just, I just had these cushions done and they are like, whoa. But I think if you can really find it within yourself to like come to terms with the fact that your dad was semen and your mom just birthed you into the world, like if you can detach, if you have to, um, from the fact that, oh, they're my mom and my dad, and it is this just wild, no, it's a human. I mean, look at a wild animal. We are animals. We are mammals. If a mother whale has her offspring in the ocean, they don't have to hold hands swimming through the ocean for the next 75 years or however long they live. They're going to go their separate ways and it's going to be okay. And that goes for any animal in the wild. Um, and that is just nature. And I feel like if you really have to, then you need to come to terms with the fact that separating ways is natural and it should happen in every relationship. You can still, I mean, of course, like if you have a healthy dynamic or whatever, or if you set your boundaries, you can still have those ties and want those ties and that love. But if it need be, separate ways. And you will thank yourself later for doing it. Or if you don't do it sooner, you'll be like, damn, I should have done that a long time ago. I mean, I would have saved myself a lot of grief, you know? So just, and always listen to yourself. If you feel it within yourself, like don't second guess yourself. Don't be like, oh God, well, that would just look awful. Fuck it. No, fuck what anybody thinks. Literally. Just if you really feel in your heart that something's not right, like my mama just don't act this, or like my relationship with so and so, let it go. Listen to yourself, trust yourself, because your instincts, your guide or inner guide or whatever will lead you the right way every time. So,
That's so true. That's
mhm,
so true. Recovering from an abusive family relationship is very possible, but it often requires therapy and counseling, support networks, education and awareness, self-care and boundaries, and legal and protective measures if needed. Like going into each one, therapy is so important. Professional support can help victims process their experiences, rebuild their self-esteem, and develop healthy coping mechanisms. Your support networks, your found family support networks, oh, they're so important. They help you build upon yourself, like how
mhm,
you want to go about being in the world, how you want to interact with those that bring you joy or those that don't bring you joy. How do you want
mhm,
to impact the world? They provide crucial emotional support for you continuing, because your life is worth living. No matter what
mhm,
anyone says, you deserve to live.
mhm,
Being educated and aware and understanding the dynamics of abuse, recognizing that you as a victim are not to blame for anything that has ever happened to you, is very empowering. And I would
mhm,
like to think of the podcast as a form of education. You know,
mhm,
it's not a professional form of education, but lived experiences from people who maybe share some similar experiences with you, and hearing
Mhm.
their stories can be super impactful for you understanding that you can get out of an abusive relationship, even if it's familial, and you can
Mhm.
find better things out there in the world. Self-care and boundaries, learning to prioritize yourself and establish healthy boundaries is essential for recovery. And
Mhm.
if needed, legal and protective measures, some cases, legal action is required, or a protective measure might be necessary to ensure your safety from an abuser. Overall, while the impact of an abusive family relationship can be profound and long lasting, with the right support and resources, anybody can heal and rebuild a positive sense of self. Distancing
Mhm.
yourself from an abusive family can be very challenging, but it's a crucial step in your safety and your well-being. So here are some strategies, to navigate this
Mhm.
process. Okay. So identify a safe place. So have a plan where you can go if you are in, if you're an adult, okay, and you are in an abusive household, you need to create a safe place or identify a safe place where you can go to. So that could be a friend's house, a shelter. You could say, go to a church and be like, hey, I need to find a resource for, say, someone to take care of me for a little bit. If you don't believe in Jesus, that's fine. But I know from experience that a lot of churches, especially Baptist churches, have things in place for people who are victims of abuse to help them get out of those abusive situations and into a different, family group. I know this from experience because my grandparents provided this for countless families. My grandparents had a little organization where even homeless people, they would be that newfound home for them and help them establish themselves, build themselves up, and help them find a new home or set them up so that they can get their own apartment. That is
Mhm.
something that you can do. Number two, create emergency contacts. Keep a list of people that are safe, that are trusted, including friends and other relatives that may be supportive for you. There's also many local supportive services like hotlines and shelters, and just like a little step, the National Abuse Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. You can call them anywhere. You can get support. They have qualified members that can find you a place to stay.
Okay.
There's also legal protections, especially in the state of Texas, for, say, if you are an abused woman or an abused man, you can contact them through that hotline, the same hotline, and reach out, and they can find you resources and shelters. Not just like, I know a lot of people think of shelters as a bad place.
Mhm.
I've been to one. I have been homeless before. They're not
Mhm.
all bad places, and they have resources to help you get through it. Okay. And then focus on your personal growth. Okay. Invest time in your personal development, education, and activities that enhance your esteem and your independence. Okay.
Amen.
You need to continually reevaluate your relationships,
Mhm.
prioritize the ones that are healthy and supportive, and reassess your boundaries. Okay. Make adjustments when needed to ensure your ongoing safety and well-being. So again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And contacting them, they can find you a shelter. Distancing yourself from an abusive family is complex and a very difficult process, but prioritizing your safety and well-being is essential. By seeking
Mhm.
support and creating a safety plan and taking practical steps towards independence, you can begin to build a healthier and more secure way of life outside of abuse. And you have no idea how many lives that you can impact for the good once you start to prioritize yourself and love yourself, because you deserve it. Okay? You all deserve it, including you, Jace. You deserve to be loved and appreciated
Oh,
and respected for who you are and what you will continue to bring to the world.
as do you. I always say, if you can't love yourself, how the hell can you love somebody else? So love
Exactly.
yourself, honey. Love yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Jace, for sharing
Well,
with
thank you for
us.
having me. I've enjoyed it. It was like popping my little podcast cherry. That was my first one. I was, oh,
Yay! Well,
yes,
that makes me so happy that I got to be your first podcast, and I hope that you have many more because they're fun. I enjoy it.
they are. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I get nervous. Like when I start using my hands, honey, or I'll tense up. I'm like, I think just get nervous speaking. But I think that that just comes with. I mean, I'm sure when you did your very first one, you were like, "Ooh," like scary. But I mean, you just relax and it becomes natural. And I hope it does because I do enjoy, like, I mean, it is like you were saying, it's one thing to talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist or whatever and know that, you know, you're paying them or that they're a professional and it's really not like personal. You know what I mean? But to hear someone's lived experiences and in whatever context, I feel like it can be helpful or it can put a smile on your face or it can, you know, evoke other emotions or, you know, healing or whatever it is. And so I really like, I would love to run my mouth wherever. If I can help somebody, then that is 100% worth it. I love to, yeah.
Exactly. I would love to have you on another episode. I think this was a very enlightening conversation, and I really appreciated having it. You are a very
I,
cool person. I think you're
well, thank
awesome.
you. You are too. I love that. We've been texting so much. It's almost like a blessing that we've put it off this long because we've got to just communicate and kind of get to know each other a little bit. And I think it's been really sweet. I would love to count you as one of my friends. So, Lord,
Yay!
I
Oh,
I need
that's
all the good ones I can get.
yes. I would love to be your friend, Jace. Oh my God. Yes, I love
Honey,
that.
come see me. I actually, speaking of, you were talking about your mom being a hoarder. I just cleared out the biggest room in my house of everything because I am cleansing and starting over because I'm a hoarder. I don't know if you've seen my TikToks, but oh, I'm gonna post one about the inside of the house later. You'll die. You'll be like, oh my god! But it's it's gonna be cleared out. I'm gonna be taking visitors, so you just book your weekend, and I'll be happy to
Yes.
have you.
Oh, that's so amazing. And that is healing. That is healing
Mhm.
because hoarding is, a mental illness. It's you
Yeah.
have had a lack of something for so long that it's hard to let go of things, especially if those things hold memories or
Mhm.
you never know what other people are going through. And I know that my mom hoarded a lot because especially our kids' clothes. She had a whole four-horse barn full of just things that we used as
Oh my
kids
god.
because she was like, that was when those were the best times when we didn't have autonomy, essentially. That was why they were the
Mhm.
best times for her. And it is a mental illness. It isn't something to be hated or seen or looked down upon. It is
Mhm.
something that's real and very hard to experience, not only for yourself, but for other people as well. It's such an isolating thing as well. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud
Thank
of
you.
you. That's
I
so much
appreciate that.
work. Yeah.
I think that I always kid everybody that because I never had a problem with it until this house. But crazy enough, so the first or the previous owners, they bought this house, and this house is like 6,000 square feet or something. So it was packed to the fucking brim when I first got it. But then they bought the house next door and built a little walkway and packed it full. So they were just buying house after house, putting all their shit in it and stuff. And I was like, I wonder if it's the curse of the property or something. Because I don't know where. I never before in my life. I love to get rid of shit. I love to just move on and cleanse and whatever. And it's like I moved in
Mhm.
here and I'm like, oh God, it just started like creeping in on me. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting in my little couch with towers of shit piled around me. And I'm like, oh my God, how did it come to this?
Mhm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
am so thankful, like just to look around and it just be fresh and empty. I'm
Yes.
like, fuck yes. I felt like, whew.
Yes.
I'll
Exactly,
be,
dude.
I, there's a little quote over there on the wall. Here, see if you can really see it, that I wrote in literal permanent marker. And it says, uh, it's your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you. And I wrote
Mm.
that probably 2 years ago, when I was really like sitting here in the worst of like my depression. And I like looked at it this morning as I finally cleaned out this room. And I was like, I'm ready to I'm ready to walk my path and walk it the best that I can and do it unapologetically and however the hell I want to, honey. So
Mm-hmm.
turning the page, new leaf.
Good
We'll,
job.
we'll
Good
see.
job. I'm so proud
Thank
of
you.
you.
Thank you.
Shout out your TikTok for all those that don't know you.
Oh, Lord Yeehaw Jace. That is me on TikTok, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. You can find me. 2 E's, Yeehaw, and JACE.
Mm-hmm. Go follow him over on
Oh,
YouTube,
yes.
TikTok, Instagram. Go follow him.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'll see you in another
Thank you for
episode,
having
and
me.
I'm going to text you. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
If you're watching us over on YouTube, here are our memes of the week, carefully curated by those amazing people over on our Discord server. Now let's get into those memes. At the end of every episode, we spin our wheel of emotions to learn a new feeling and how it correlates to trauma. So let's spin this wheel, shall we? Okay. So we landed on avoidance, aversion, hesitant. Whenever we're going through any type of abuse, especially if it's in a family dynamic, a lot of us are taught that family is everything, right? Your family is the bonds that will last you the rest of your life. Your family is something that you should always protect and preserve. You need to always obey your parents. You need to always, respect your elders, respect your grandparents. But when abuse comes into those dynamics, we can feel very hesitant and a lot of aversion to our own family. And then we feel guilt about that because self-preservation is really strong, even when we're in a family dynamic. And if we're constantly being abused by the people that are supposed to protect us, supposed to love us unconditionally, which personally, I don't believe in unconditional love. And I can get into that in another episode. But if we're in a situation where we know that we're being abused, but your body knows, but your mind doesn't know, you can feel a lot of avoidance towards any type of relationship. You can feel a lot of fear, anxiety, hesitancy around being close to another person. And that's all very normal because our family relationships are our foundation at which we build upon other relationships in the future. If we're having an unstable foundation, it makes it near to impossible to trust other people outside of our family. Because if the people that raised us mistreated us, logically, the people outside of our family will mistreat us as well. That isn't always the case. And another layer to it, if we think a healthy relationship is an abusive relationship modeled by, say, our parents towards us or our parents towards each other, we are going to be picking abusive relationships and we are going to be abusing others in relationships. And that's why it's so important. It's so vital that we unlearn these things and start to connect with one another on, hey, what is normal? What is the way that we should treat one another? How should we show love? What is love? And I really want to give a thank you to all of you guys that stick around to the final part of this episode, the spinning the wheel, because it means a lot to me. It's honestly a way for me to discuss these feelings as I have learned them, because I am in therapy. I'm going to continue to go to therapy, but also these discussions are super beneficial. There are so many social norms and expectations, especially within family relationships, that other people will look at us differently if we don't have, a healthy relationship with our parents or our siblings. And that's okay. This is why I really, really believe in found family and finding the people that you choose to stick around with, to embrace, to build upon relationships with. And my found family, I'm really blessed to have them. I'm really blessed to still have my brothers from the family that I was born into. But my found family, Kaylee and Bailey and Catelyn and Abby and Carly and Anna, those girls are amazing. I just had my birthday. That's why my hair is pink. So I just had my birthday. I'm 24 now. And so I had them, a couple of them, come over for my birthday, and they stayed for so long, even well past when my siblings left. And it felt amazing that they saw me, that they wanted to celebrate me, that they told me that my birthday is worth celebrating and I deserve to be taken care of. That's something that I do need to be reminded of, that I am worth being seen and appreciated and celebrated, and so are you. So I really want to thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support our podcast, we have a Patreon. Different tiers can get you a bracelet, which are handmade bracelets made by me, Grace, like these ones, or you can get a Trauma Dump podcast logo sticker like the one on the back of my computer. Those links are in the description. Any support helps us out a lot. So if you feel compelled to, please like, subscribe, rate the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and please share it with your friends. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, you are capable of a fulfilling life in spite of your circumstances and your trauma. May you rise again from the ashes and be filled with peace, hope, love, joy, and understanding. I'll see you guys in the next episode, where we talk about how the mind, the brain, the body connection can all be impacted by trauma. Goodbye, guys. Stay safe.